Welcome to Empowering Expert Learners Yield Successful Post-Secondary Outcomes, a webinar by OCALI in collaboration with State Support Team Region 6. I'm Ron Rogers, and with me is...
Hi everyone, this is Sherry Smith from State Support Team 6, and I want to give a quick shout out to our diverse audience we have today. Argentina, Australia, we have a curriculum director, a school counselor, people from Florida, New York, we have quite a diverse audience with us.
And we'd also like to introduce...
Hi, my name is Storm Smith, and I am a junior here at Ohio Northern University. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. We're so glad you could be here with us. It's outstanding. OCALI and Ohio State support teams work closely together to improve outcomes for students across Ohio. And of course, Region 6, if you didn't know, is housed in Wapak, Ohio, and in the southern part of the state. So real quick, please type into the question box if you're alone or how many people are sitting with you. And we'll read some of the answers. Okay, it looks like most people are a party of one or one. Oh, there's one with two. Looks like the rest of everyone is all alone. So with that said, we are going to move on. It looks like folks know exactly how to use the answer box. And a shout out to our Ohio Collaborative team members that are on with us today. Thank you so much. You all have our back. So as we think about it, if you would like, you can also have a back channel discussion on Twitter. So we would ask if you do that, please use hashtag UDL. And you'll see there, Sherry Smith is at Smith43326, and Ron Rogers is at Ron B. Rogers. So feel free to use the Twitter and have that discussion in the background if you'd like, with a lot of other people. Okay, the ICANN statement.
All right, so today, our ICANN statement. I can discuss how empowering expert learners yield successful post-secondary outcomes, and I would add to that post-secondary engagement.
Cool. Okay, let's go to our first interactive first poll question. And as I'm pulling up the question, Sherry will read the question for us as I pull up the poll.
So what do you know about transition on a scale of 1 to 5, and 5 is the highest?
So you can go ahead and select one of the following. And the percentages are already coming in. They're coming in fast. Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay, 74%'s voted. We'll give it another 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're going to close the poll. And we're going to share the results.
Well, it looks like 33% are still at that 1 to 2 range. 39%, which is our highest, are about halfway, midway. 22% rated themselves as a 4, and then about 6% rated themselves as at a 5. And really, the transition we're talking about today, it could be what you had in mind. First of all, transition is noted in the special education world. It's documented on IEPs when students are 14 years or older, and that's for Ohio. Federally, it must be started at age 16. But it's also something that is important for all students. Everybody who's an educator sort of has this responsibility to prepare students for life after school. And so that's what it's all about. So this next slide really, I think, is a good graphic to sum up our webinar today. So if you don't get anything out of it, hopefully you like this slide.
Please like the slide. Please like the slide.
And really, this slide just starts with kind of a thought that in the beginning, teachers created, or when teachers are working, they're trying to create UDL classrooms based on student variability using the UDL guidelines. But we want to progress beyond that. So next, we look at students starting to take ownership of their learning. And that's really what's going to allow us to move them to the next phase, which is the expert learner phase. And if you see that equation in there, you can see expert learner equals successful post-secondary outcomes. So really, we can build a strong path to adulthood by using these evidence-based practices that we're going to mention today and universal design for learning, because the goal of UDL is to create that expert learner. So if you're wondering, well, what does she mean by expert learner? CAST has defined it really nicely, and this slide kind of bullets out what it could look like in each of the 3 principles. So what does it look like to be resourceful and knowledgeable? And I know some people might be listening in their car, so I'll read through a few. We would want our learners to bring considerable prior knowledge to the table, to activate that prior knowledge and be able to assimilate it to new, to recognize tools, to know tools that will help them, and to know how to transfer meaningful information into, or the information they have into new meaningful information. We want our students to be strategic and goal-directed. We want them to formulate plans for learning, monitor their progress, select strategies to help them address their own weaknesses or strengths. And we want them to be purposeful and motivated as well. So are they goal-directed? Can they set goals and work towards them? Can they sustain that effort and regulate their emotions? So that's really expert learner in a nutshell.
You know what, Sherry, I forgot to say?
What?
I forgot to tell everybody that there's a grand and wonderful PowerPoint at the bottom of their little GoToMeeting thing. They can download at any time, and it's accessible, or at least as accessible as Ron knows how to create it. So, but anyway, everybody can download that. Okay,
right.
Go ahead, Sherry.
Thanks, Ron. So the next slide talks about the progression to adult outcomes, and it just gives you a few examples of what might that look like in the classroom. So the first box gives one example of offering the use of pneumatics. Pneumatics is a strategy that many teachers use to help students learn. But as a student begins to self-monitor and take ownership of their learning, that's really something that they can choose to use on their own. Wow, this works for me. I'm going to apply this to my learning. It's an effective approach. And then finally, the expert learner adult outcome would be that they would really identify that this works for them and carry it with them through life. So they'll use it when they're training for their career and when they're trying to learn information either in college or any type of post-secondary education setting or on the job. So the second example, teacher promotes peer collaboration and feedback. That's something that teachers design for their class. As you progress, students begin to realize, hey, this works for me. I need to talk it out with somebody. And then if you think how that would progress to an expert learner or adult outcomes, they really value that collaboration with teammates at work and with their coworkers. The final example, text-to-speech is provided to all students. Students can choose to use that, whether it's an accommodation or not. Some students have it as an accommodation on their IEP, but maybe this is just something that helps you learn, and then you can carry that with you through life.
Sherry, you unpacked that so well. I'm so glad that you did.
Black text on white background with a screenshot of the Take 5 webinars. Be sure to check out the Take 5 on our OCALI website at https://www.ocali.org/project/expert-learners-through-UDL.
What do you have to tell us about Take 5?
Well, thanks for asking, Ron.
Oh, you're welcome.
I partnered, I think last year, with OCALI, the Transition Center at OCALI, and created a Take 5 webinar around this idea. So the beginning of the webinar is a little bit about what I just talked about, but then I give another example of what this would look like in either a class that a student might be taking or something that like a training that might be occurring in their job. And I use a Microsoft Excel example in that. So if you like this idea and you want to share it with your peers, it gives examples of what it would look like for each of those bulleted points of expert learner.
Black text on white background. Second poll question. What do you know about expert learners defined by the UDL guidelines? Please rate from 1 to 5, and 5 is the highest.
Oh, we got a second poll question, but we're going to do this one a little different.
Okay.
What we'd like you to do is put anywhere from 1 to 5 and only one answer, please, in the question box and hit send. And we'll review those that way instead of doing the poll the way we did before. We really want to keep the attendees active, so we just keep switching it up.
You see anything popping up yet, Ron?
Yeah, I see some 3s popping up.
Okay. So what do you know about expert learners?
Yeah. Oh, so there's a couple 4s, 3. Yeah, some people are voting more than once. That's okay. That's all right.
They change their mind.
Mostly it's 3s and 4s. I don't
Great.
see any 2s or 1s or anything like that. So we're right in the 3s and 4s category. So sweet. Thanks. Boy, love it. Let's go to the next one.
Well,
Okay.
Well, that's fantastic.
Sherry.
And I'm really happy that so many people on this webinar are comfortable with expert learners, because hopefully then they can make the connection to those in the world of transition and supporting students in transition. And what we're going to do for you is a role play.
Role play graphic. In the center of a circle, it says supporting implementation. Around the circle, it is numbered 1 to 5 clockwise. Each number has an arrow with an expansion of tasks. 1. Identify critical needs. 2. Research and select evidence-based strategies. 3. Plan for implementation. 4. Implement and monitor. 5. Examine, reflect, adjust.
Kind of around the idea of this graphic. So we wanted to really offer a way to systematically support transition. And just know that one good way is that it must be a part of your day-to-day. It can't be something that's done in Section 5 of the IEP and then that's it. It really takes the whole community to support building successful adults. I mean, I think most people would agree. And so we really want to talk about, well, what does this look like in our day-to-day implementation? And that's what this role play is going to do.
Okay, so as we think about the role play, we found out from folks that gave us feedback on the last webinar, and I found out later, Sherry told me she was one of them, that she kind of wanted visuals. When Barb Gentile Green and I did this, they wanted some visuals along with it. So this time we've decided we'll add the visuals because we always do what you all suggest. So each slide will have a visual, and they'll just have a little bit of what we're talking about, not a lot, but just a little to kind of help with that idea of where we are and where we're heading, and you can kind of keep track with it visually just as well. So see how that works out. Okay, so here we go. We're basically sitting around a table, and we're now a teacher-based team doing our script. Okay, as we think about what we did the last time we met, how did it go for the rest of you?
Well, our last meeting cycle ended with a focus on self-monitoring, but we found that students were unsure how to monitor their progress towards a goal because they were not engaged in working towards a meaningful goal.
Yeah, I agree. And furthermore, they struggled to even identify a goal that was relevant and meaningful to them.
So what are the needs now that you think you might look at?
Well, students need to know how to set relevant goals based on their preferences, interests, needs, and strengths.
What adult actions do we need to implement to address those needs? Remember, we need to meet ESSA requirements, which means the strategies we select have to show that evidence that they're effective at producing results and improving outcomes when implemented.
Well, I researched a strategy that directly relates to those needs, and it's called the Self-Determined Learning Model of Instruction for Goal Setting. It has a high level of research that was completed using a random control trial with a large sample, and it matches our student population. Also, it was completed at multiple sites.
That's perfect. That's exactly what is needed for ESSA Tier 1 or Level 1, as Ohio calls it.
This model really breaks down how we can teach goal setting, which we all know is a guideline of universal design for learning that promotes executive functioning, something our students really need support in. I think this might actually take several weeks to complete, so I'm proposing breaking it down and just looking at the first few steps before we meet again. How does that sound?
Okay, that sounds great. I love it. What do you both think?
Sounds good to me.
Perfect, works for me.
Okay, let's talk about what that looks like then. Let's break it down and just focus on that first step.
Okay, so the first part of any lesson is to get students engaged in the why. To me, this ties perfectly to our district's practice profiles first component, which is establishing clear learning targets. We know that we need to say it, show it, and sometimes let them turn to a neighbor and repeat it in their own words. Sometimes we make up gestures.
That sounds good, Storm. I do something similar actually. I have the students get into groups of 3 or 4 to determine their reasons for why this learning target is important and relevant to them. I also like to get a feel for the room, and one way I do that is, well, in the past, I've had students base it off of their last assessment, so it's really needs-based. And that works great. So for example, many students use the learning progressions I have posted in the class, so they're aware of how close they are to hitting the learning target. However, some base it off of future plans or interests or their strengths, which is really cool. And I also do this thing, I have this kind of like a quick 30-second share out protocol that just allows students to share out. The whole room can have a chance to share out in just a few minutes. Sometimes the students use whiteboards and pictures. Some just say it, some just share it verbally. And then we do this one thing called sign it or rhyme it, which is like this dancing mime gesture activity, which states why their learning target is relevant. And they seem to have a lot of fun with that.
Wow, that's a lot. Let's decide what we want to do. I like all of your ideas.
Okay, as the narrator, I'd just like to tell everybody what's happened. At this point, the team really narrows what they want this part of the strategy to look like. And then I'm going to come back now as the facilitator. How are we going to monitor that? What would some of the look-fors be? Okay, now I'm coming back as the narrator again. The group co-creates the look-fors that align to the district, define practices, and are specific to this strategy. Self-determined learning module of instruction for goal setting. The note taker records their thoughts, which will later be put into a Google form for the teams to use as they observe each other teaching the strategy. This part is important because it allows the team to check that they are doing what they said they were going to do.
Okay, so we've identified the core components of how we're going to teach this, and we've identified what it looks like. So when we walk into each other's room, we know what to look for.
All right, so the last time we did classroom walkthroughs, each CBT member really liked being able to use the iPads or their phones to enter into the Google form. I think we learned a lot about how differently we presented the strategy.
On a side note, folks, I'm really glad we have a culture of continuous improvement here. Everyone understands that we're not entering into the classrooms to evaluate or judge teachers, but rather to learn from each other and improve our practice to truly be the best implementers that we can be. So, as we think about that, how are we doing? Or how are we going to know that we've had a positive impact on the student outcomes? And we need to think about what will be our assessment, and will we need to check that students are understanding our strategy, but also measure how they are learning the content standards we're teaching.
Yeah, right, Ron. We definitely need to do that. So we need to know if each student can find a way to make their goal relevant, first of all.
So I think that we should leave the way that they respond up to the students. Some may choose to use their Google Doc, some might write on their exit card, and some can do a classroom post perhaps. That's an asset that we have here as a building leadership team. Our students have been guided to be expert learners through our modeling and instruction. The students can choose their own formative assessment to show they have met their goal for the day.
I love it, Storm. You're absolutely right. We do have that as an asset. So me just make sure I know what I'm doing here. They will choose the format they want to show what they know. And so I guess in my class, I will ask them an exit question on the content, but then also that last piece that I was saying on how they're able to show that they can make the goal relevant, correct?
Yes, I think that's what I heard.
Yep, absolutely. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Perfect. Remember to bring back those student examples as well as your data.
So if students cannot identify a way to make it relevant and cannot answer the exit or content question, we might need to reteach.
Right. As Ron calls it, Tier 2 targeted support, which might look differently from the first time we taught it. Something I like to do is to use station rotations. That way I have time to work with students in a small group setting. And sometimes I use peer groups in a sort of reciprocal teaching or a problem-solving protocol.
Great. Remember, Tier 2 is prevention. This is how we identify who is more likely to need the support. Our exit questions will help us determine who to target. Leave no student behind. Every student in the rooms want to see each other be successful. No kid goes to school to not be successful or unaccepted.
Right. So, okay, again, just to be clear, Ron, you want us to address Tier 2 and Tier 3 within our instructional time. And in the past, you've wanted us to bring back what we did to prevent those students from not mastering the content. Will we also talk about this the next time we meet?
Yes, please. We learn a great deal from that, and the next time we teach this, we can incorporate that into our Tier 1 instruction. Okay, at this time, our teacher-based team has ended.
Right. So hopefully you got a feel for what that teacher-based team conversation might feel like. Usually those meetings are around, I would say, 45 minutes to an hour to get the most out of them. And so obviously we condensed ours into 10 minutes. And we took out the conversations that would make it grade or content specific. So we tried to give you a good feel for how to support transition at any age. I mean, this really can be used at multiple ages and with multiple subjects.
The role play graphic is displayed again.
The graphic that you see on the screen really takes you through all the steps that we went through. We started the meeting looking at step 5, wondering, how did our students benefit from what we did the last time? And then from there, we had some good data to focus on. Well, they couldn't identify or they couldn't create a goal. So we thought, well, that's a need if our students either don't know what a goal is or can't make it relevant to them. So then we looked for research or evidence-based strategies that directly related to our need, that would support our students in transition, that had a high level of research to meet ESSA requirements, and that also met our target population. What you didn't hear and the narrator mentioned was how we co-created, designing to the edges, considering the barriers that we have in our classes, maybe students, on an IEP, or maybe there were students who just, were at, I guess, the other end of the spectrum. This is for all students who were kind of bored and we needed to really get them tied in and make this meaningful for them to maybe connect it to a future career. We talked about briefly, and the narrator sort of alluded to the fact that we looked for, or we created look-fors, so that if we went into someone else's room or if an administrator came into our room, they would see us teaching in a pretty similar fashion, so that our adult actions are really aligned to the best way to implement the strategy. And then finally, we talked about what is that going to look like? How are we going to assess if students are, learning our content, because that's important, but also learning this important strategy that's going to help them through life.
Guidelines chart is displayed with 3 columns: engagement, representation, and action and expression, and 3 rows: access, build, and internalize.
And let's just bring it back to the guidelines, because you guys are all here for UDL, and we can't have a UDL webinar without bringing it back to the guidelines. But if you notice, we mentioned that guiding appropriate goal setting, it supports executive functioning. It's on the guidelines. It helps students internalize what they need to do to be successful. It also helps the self-regulation. And so this is key for engagement, to activate that effective network of the brain. This is a barrier for a lot of our students. And then it really helps students understand how they can transfer this, not only this information that they're learning, but the strategy to other settings.
Evidence-based practices graphic lists out chaining, community-based instruction, computer-based instruction, mnemonics, self-monitoring and self-management, video modeling, prompting, self-advocacy and self-determination, visual supports, mobile technology, and simulation.
And the evidence-based practices from Employment First on the OCALI website, if you want to look for that, I think we have it on the last slide as a link. The evidence-based practices resource that we have shows you many different ways that you can support transition and helping students become more independent, improving self-determination, that is just going to help them be more successful as adults. So you'll see on here, we focused on self-monitoring and self-management. We mentioned a little bit mnemonics, but there's so many other great strategies that we can use with all students that will support transition.
NTACT, NTACs using SDLMI to teach goal setting, shows page 1 of Lesson Plan Starter, which includes the following sections: objective, setting and materials, and content taught.
And we mentioned the SDLMI to teach goal setting and problem solving. We mentioned this in the Roleplay, which is the self-determined learning model of instruction for goal setting. We actually pulled this off of NTAC's website, so there's a link to this as well. This is just a lesson starter. A team would want to look at this and really tie this into their curriculum and what content they're teaching, and they want to make it their own. And this is just a snapshot of page 1.
Black letters on a white background say Teacher Self-Assessment above a picture of 3 pages titled UDL Progression Rubric.
Finally, as teachers and professionals, we always want to be the best that we can be too. We want to be able to model what it means to be an expert learner, and we want to try to be an expert practitioner, I like to call it. So another resource we wanted to share with you was created by Katie Novak and Kristen Rodriguez, and it's published by CAST. And it's called the UDL Progression Rubric, and you've probably seen this before.
Slide titled Executive Function.
What I wanted to call your attention to, if you want to look specifically at goal setting, because that's what this role play was about, it shows you how you can begin to move your practice towards that expert practice, that expert practitioner, I like to call it. So this helps you sort of regulate where you are and your progression through your own learning.
Supporting links 1 through 9.
And here are the supporting links that we mentioned. There's the guidelines, a little bit more about expert learner or tips for creating an expert learner in every classroom, 10 suggestions to develop expert learners. The UDL progressions is on here. There's a video, the link to NTACT, which is the National Technical Assistance Center for Transition, and then the last link takes you specifically to that lesson starter that we shared with you.
Wow. Now there was a question asked during this, and
Okay.
I'm just going to bring up what that question is. How can we successfully identify expert learners? That is an outstanding question, and it's a question to think about for everybody on here to think about. And that is, how can we successfully identify expert learners? And I would invite Robin to email us at any time.
Right.
Unfortunately, we don't really have enough time to go into the question because
I do have some resources for you, Robin. I can share with you.
There we go, Robin. Please email Sherry. The next thing someone said was there's many features of design thinking skills. So the rest of us should probably take some time and maybe look into that. Thank you for that one. And then somebody commented, such a great idea to add the visual. Well, excellent. Excellent.
Thank you.
Yes.
Twitter #UDL chat is the first and third Wednesday.
To finish off, please join one of the best chats on Twitter, the #UDL chat. It is tonight, by the way. So Eastern time at 9 p.m. And if you join us, you're going to be joining a lot of people. And we have a special guest tonight that's going to be co-facilitating also. And that's Becky Furby. So please come to that. We're looking at over probably 100 people tonight for that.
Wow.
Yeah, we're excited. So anyway.
Thank you. Sherry Smith, State Support Team Region 6, at Smith 43326. Ron Rogers, OCALI, at Ron B. Rogers. Storm Smith, Ohio Northern University, Ed Major.
I would personally like to thank everyone.
Thank you for having me.
And you're welcome, Storm.
Been a great time.
We're glad to have you.
Yeah, thanks for being on this webinar. It was great to have you. Bye.
Bye.